Frobisher! I'm Colin Baker. Oh, turn your translator on, there's a good fellow. Monstrous, twisted ego. I'll die happy if the last words you ever hear are mine.
YouTube, and welcome to another Doctor Who Big Finish review. Today I'm taking a look at something that I've wanted to take a look at for so long, and it is Classic Doctor's New Monsters. It's just came out and it's on the Big Finish website at the moment, and seriously, if you've been watching my content recently, you will know how much I've been hyping up to this box set, and it was worth the wait. I think we've knew about it now for over a year, been very excited for it since, and yeah, it's definitely paid off. So as with every Big Finish release, I will leave in the description below the link to go and buy this box set. I highly recommend it. I do believe that it's about £20 for the next month or so, until it gets mass released in further stores like Forbidden Planet, generally in other retailers, so I highly recommend it on the Big Finish website at the moment, because for 20 quid you literally can't go wrong. This is a perfect jumping on point. So because there's literally 4 stories to talk about in this box set from 4 different Doctors, I'm going to get straight into it very quickly and take a look at Fallen Angel, written by Paul Mulry. So Fallen Angel is possibly the most intriguing of the set because it's got the Weeping Angels in, and it's a very interesting one because how on earth can you do a creature that don't talk on an audio story? And that is something that a lot of people have been wondering about for quite a long time, including myself, and I think that this is generally down to the directing of the story and the script, and it works really well. So first off, the Fifth Doctor. I've never really been much of a fan of the Fifth Doctor, I will be honest, and I think that Big Finish has definitely made me like him a little bit more. I do quite like him. I think that all the Doctors on Big Finish are brilliant, but this one definitely stands out for him, and it's possibly one of my favourites I've listened to with the Fifth Doctor, and definitely so far this year. Basically, for this story, and with all of the others, the Doctors are technically alone, but we're introduced to some characters for the stories that literally fill the companion role, and we don't really see them again. But for this one, we actually have a really nice couple that are sort of on their honeymoon. So we're introduced to 2 characters called Joel and Gabby, and they're very interesting, actually. And Joel is actually played by the guy who played Maurice Hussein in An Adventure in Space and Time, and the other one, who's Gabby, is played by Diane Morgan, and I really liked them, actually. I think they were a really nice couple, and they were school teachers, which was a nice one to get a bit of a hark back to Ian and Barbara, which I liked, and then one of them was a history teacher. The history teacher was interested in the art side of things, as we did have a very big and famous artist in this story that worked so well with the Weeping Angels. And one thing that was mentioned by Barnaby Edwards in the behind the scenes for this is they wanted to make something that was a bit of a sequel to Blink, and it certainly worked like that, because I think that the Weeping Angels are one of those characters that has been used quite a lot on the new series, and possibly they've not really had the same impact, or at least definitely haven't got the same impact that they used to. And this one is a very good one because we only have 3 Weeping Angels in this story, and I think that they definitely work better in small groups. And a very interesting thing about this story is the Weeping Angels aren't alone, even though they're the lonely assassins. Basically, they're using the humans and they're hypnotising them, which I wasn't aware that they could sort of do there. And when you looked into their eyes, this sort of hypnotised the person into believing that they need to be dug out of the marble, which I loved. I thought that was a brilliant idea. And then there was this legion of people that have basically been spread across time called the Legion of the Angels, and they basically worship the angels like some god, like how some people would worship a statue, which once again really fits in well with that setting, because of course in this time we do have a ton of statues, and once again, why hasn't this been done before? Of course, in the story we also have Michelangelo, which he's pronounced very differently in the audios, which I was shocked by. Apparently, according to Barnaby Edwards, that is the correct pronunciation, but yeah, I think it's Michelangelo, literally like said really quickly. I can't say it, I'll just say it simply because hey, I can't be bothered to be confused. But yeah, he was played by quite a famous actor, actually. He was played by Matthew Kelly, and I loved him in it, actually. Once again, I think the historical characters are quite hard to do in Doctor Who because you need a good actor to play them, and Matthew Kelly was certainly that good actor. I really liked him in the story. He had a relationship with the Doctor, which is what I liked. Of course, in the story they hadn't have met before, but I think that it worked very well having that history teacher in there that already knew the background of the character, and then we had the Doctor, of course, who already knew him as well, to an extent, and I think that that worked very well. Of course, he was halfway through painting the Sistine Chapel, and the idea is in the story that that Michelangelo gets taken out of time, and of course because of that the Sistine Chapel ceiling doesn't get completed, because naturally in history there's a break apparently between the painting of the Sistine Chapel. One half gets done and then he comes back a year later or something to do the rest, but because he gets taken out of time, the other half doesn't get done, and basically after that the whole of history melts down and all the things that he does after doesn't happen, and the Doctor gets very concerned by this. Some people are very concerned with the story that it would inherit the early adventure style format, having these sort of narration every so often. This story doesn't have that, which is great to see. I think that it's done very cleverly. I was sort of expecting some very dodgy scripting, where we would have the Doctor going, oh, they are over there now, they are reaching out for us, and sort of like having a narration in there, sort of narrating how they look and things. That was done to an extent, but it wasn't so obvious. It was done very cleverly, and they sort of needed to warn people of where the Weeping Angels were. And there was this excellent scene where they were coming after Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, and he was on the scaffolding while they were building it, and the Weeping Angels literally smashed through the chapel windows and crawled along the ceiling, and you could imagine this in your mind happening. And honestly, the music to accompany this, along with the directing from Barnaby Edwards, it worked so well. Phil Moran, who wrote this story, seriously accompanied by Barnaby Edwards' directing, two very clever people to actually be able to recreate something that doesn't even talk, a physical statue, in an audio story, and for it to work so well is a brilliant idea. And honestly, I really enjoyed the story. It's possibly one of the highlights for the box set, I think. Generally, the format itself is very interesting as well. It's about an hour long, much like any other box set story, which some of the other stories surprisingly vary from this, but I think that the timing for it was very good. It started sort of towards the end, and it turned out that the people on the honeymoon, Joel and Gabby, they got sent back in time in the museum at the very start, a very, very eerie pre-title sequence, which I really liked. They got sent back to them the Michelangelo times, and this really nice scene at the end where the Doctor revealed to them that they couldn't in fact be taken back to their normal time, and it sort of helped fill out that Amy and Rory problem that many people have of why couldn't the Doctor just go back and help them. And I think that in The Angels Take My Hand we got a very lazy reason as to why he couldn't, but in this we get a much more of a developed thing that I'm pretty sure we didn't have in the past of why he couldn't go back in time. And basically, if the Doctor takes the other people back to their modern time of where they're meant to be, the whole thing with the Weeping Angels will in fact be rewritten, and then they can all just be free again. The problem would still be there. So that's apparently what would happen if he took them back. So I really did like that, the way that they cleared that up. Once again, Big Finish are literally fixing the problems that the new series has created. I love that. The very end of the story uses something similar to Blink once again, which I don't really blame them for, because I think the Weeping Angels are some very hard things to actually sort of complete and to succeed from and to actually win against, really, because they are stone creatures. And I think that as much as they come into Doctor Who, you really need to find a decent way to sort of get rid of them. And this one is once again just sort of a bit of a reuse of from Blink, really. They basically used mirrors in a way too. I think it was a very interesting way that they did it. Used the Sistine Chapel mirrors to basically freeze all three of them, which I liked. And then I do believe by the end they concreted it in under the Sistine Chapel, where the people who were worshipping the angels sort of had their secret chapel area with all this historic art and things worshipping the angels. It was a very creepy context idea, and I did really like it. And I like the way that the people actually worship the angels. I think that was something that, once again, it works well with the angels, because I think that they look like something that could be worshipped, because of course they are angels, so they already are sort of a bit of a religious figure in a way. So I think that using that idea of worshipping is a very clever one, actually. I'm surprised it's not been done before. Judoon in Chains now with Colin Baker, and wow, I cannot say anything about this story other than saying I actually love it. I think that once again, Fallen Angel and this one are definitely the strongest one of the box set personally for me, and I adored it. I honestly thought it was brilliant. I'm very confused as how Simon Bernard and Paul Morris could actually use the Judoon in a story, because they aren't really to an extent an actual villain, they're sort of just police, really. And I think that it's very clever the way that they used them in the story. And once again, this one is a very unusual one because it's not following the same format. As you may know, I did a video just recently about how to get into Big Finish and saying about the 1 hour format. This one is in a box set and it's actually longer than an hour. I do believe it totals to about 1 hour 20 minutes long, which is actually a very big rarity, or at least something that I've not came across for a box set release in a very long time. It's the longest story on this box set and it definitely deserves it. In this story, Colin Baker is once again brilliant. I think that he works amazingly with the Judoon, and honestly this is one of my favourite stories that I've actually listened to with Colin in. I think that it's a great idea. Once again, Simon Bernard and Paul Norris are really sort of coming up my appreciation in Big Finish, actually, because I do believe they've written quite a lot for Jago and Lightfoot. I adore them in that, and then this one, they've done so well with it also. Basically, we're introduced to a Judoon called Captain Kaibo, and he's essentially a bit of a companion now, I guess. I want to class him as a companion to the Sixth Doctor, and basically, at the very start of the story, it's very confusing because we open a trial room, and the Judoon is on trial, but not in any trial, it's a human trial as he crashes to Earth, and I do believe it's like I think it's 1870, something like that. On my notes, does it say, did I helpfully write the date? Let's see. It's quite a long time ago, whenever it was. Garden strippers for a whole planet, basically, to make it into something that these aliens want. And Captain Kaibo gets hypnotised pretty much by this essence. And yeah, it's very interesting the way that they did it, because basically he steals a ship and goes off as he wants to be free. I didn't realise this to start with, but the Judoon are actually quite thick creatures because they are rhinos and have a very small brain apparently. But Captain Kaibo is rather intelligent because he gets hypnotised by this creature. He's basically hypnotised by this essence called the Aisha, and I think it's a great thing that they've done, because Colin rescues Kaibo from his ship, and because they're very invested in law, he's not allowed to go in the TARDIS. He goes into the Judoon space pods and basically crashes to Earth in quite like a prehistoric time period. And because they are a bit confused, they basically tie him up. He's very confused and use him as a circus act basically, and because he's quite strong. And the Doctor then lands about a month later after sort of being took off course and things like that, and basically re-meets Kaibo. And I love the scene because he also gets caught up as well, because he actually defeats Kaibo by using this wrestling thing of actually hypnotising him with his watch, I do believe, or talking to him in Judoon, I can't remember which. And we then have a relationship from this point of Captain Kaibo and the Doctor, and he actually wants to help him, and they sort of become friends in a way. And I love it because I generally feel that Captain Kaibo is a general character, even though to start with he literally speaks in Judoon. We have all that Bosco for no whatever else, and it is essentially Judoon for the first bit of the story. But then after a while, because he has the Aisha in his head, he learns very quickly, and he picks up the Doctor because he can't use his translation thing because it's broken. He picks up what the Doctor says along with the companion for the story, and I think it's very clever the way that he does it. And I love the way that he overnight he reads a ton of books like Great Expectations and things like that, and by the end of the story he's writing his own poems. And humanoidish Judoon, he likes to do human things, and I love the way that he's writing poems and things. Once again, it's something that sounds rather comedic, but isn't really played to a comedic value. I genuinely liked him as a companion. I genuinely liked him as a character because he actually had something behind him. I thought it was a really fun idea. The companion for this story is Eliza, played by Karina Stanmel, and I really liked her. I think that she was once again a very nice sort of companion-esque person once again. She went off by the end, and because the person who controlled the circus actually got shot by the Judoon, and when there was this brilliant scene when they all crash-landed wanting to find Kaibo, and the Doctor went and scared them, and he was like, and because they obviously are very wrapped up in law, he said, you've done it all wrong. You need to go and follow the circus round in order and follow the arrows. And they went into a hall of mirrors and basically got really, really scared and ran away home. And I loved it. Once again, a very comedic thing. It worked very well. And Eliza was very good. She by the end of the story, she went away, but she reminded me of a bit of a Jago and Lightfoot style of character once again. She was a bit padded out. I liked her in the story once again. I wouldn't have minded either of the sort of sub-companions for these stories to actually go off with the Doctor for a bit, to be honest, which is something that they could do in the future, I guess. But generally, all of the sub-companions for these stories were very good. Judoon in Chains is certainly one of those stories that has so many decent one-liners, or there are several times in the story where I'd basically just start laughing out loud. I loved it, seriously. I think there's so many comedic things in there that fit so well with the Sixth Doctor. There's the trial going on with Kaibo, which of course is sort of a sub-reference and sub-context to Trial of a Time Lord. There's so many funny things about the humanoid court and the Judoon one, and sort of trying to conflict with each other. There's a brilliant scene as well where one of the Judoon at the very start sort of goes sentences death just by lying or something, or not saying that he's guilty. Honestly, it's a very funny story to an extent, and I think that it's a very enjoyable one. And once again, it fits you into Big Finish quite well into the longer format, because of course it is a longer story. Didn't feel that it dragged at all. I really enjoyed it for the actual length that it was. My favourite story of the box set, not just because Colin's in it, because Simon Bernard and Paul Morris have done an excellent job. Captain Kaibo is just absolutely amazing. I love him in it, and generally it's a great story and possibly one of my favourites of this year. Next up we have Harvest of the Sycorax, which is a very interesting one because a lot of people that I know have wanted the Sycorax back since the Christmas invasion, and we've never really seen them. We've seen them in sort of alliance scenes and things in the background and in pubs and things in like the RTD era, but we've never seen them in their own story. And even in the Christmas invasion, we didn't really delve into them that much. And honestly, I'm shocked that that's not been done already. This one finally allows them to come back into Doctor Who, but what in not better way to have them with the Seventh Doctor? A very different aspect to any other alien, I think. And they sort of remind me of sort of Stone Age people because of all the tooth things that they have and the staffs and things. They are very sort of Stone Age idea, I guess. And then they are really very intelligent once again, sort of, I guess, but they sort of use witchcraft, I guess, in order to create certain things. And in this episode we have a blood control idea, once again, because Sycorax love blood control, and you can do so many things with blood control, and this one is a very interesting one once again. I really like the idea for this story. This one's written by James Goss, once again another quite regular for Big Finish, and it's a very exciting one. I really like it because basically it's set in the far future of Earth, where they decide to send off all the pharmacies into the future and into space, and they basically keep all the blood samples of all the humans in this space station. Can you see where I'm going with this? The Sycorax invade this ship, they keep everybody hostage, try to get them to open the vault, and then of course, because it's a blood bank for everybody on the Earth, they literally can control everybody on the Earth, and by this point the human race is an empire, no doubt controlling other planets as well, as previously referenced in the story, and then once again they could control all these off-world colonies as well. So it's a brilliant idea once again, and something that the TV series could very easily do if they actually put their mind into it. And honestly, once again, you can do so many things with blood control. You could do that exact plot pretty much in the new series, but make it completely different, and I think that it works so well. I think that once again it's a creative idea. One is a bit of a slow burner to start with, just sort of settling the plot, and I really like the way that it's done actually. I think that it doesn't really have too much with it really. It's a rather simple sort of linear plot really. We have one idea, the Sycorax want to open the safe, get all the blood, control everybody, and that's the one idea of the story. We don't really have much of a problem in there, apart from the Doctor being basically controlled by his blood, as he gets knocked out and the Sycorax takes some of his blood as well. Then we also have this idea of medication stuff on an app, and I love there's a moment in the story where you have this watch thing and an app on it with this voice, and it's called Pad, and Doctor references it's one of those self-obsessed eras of human race times and things like that, and it once again sort of reflects, I guess, how we are now with all of our apps and things and all of our technology, and it works very well. I like the way that in the story we have them when they come under a certain thing, a certain sort of emotion, they get injected with a different bit of medication that basically stops them from feeling certain things, and we get introduced to a character in the story called Zanzibar hashtag, which she's basically the companion of the story. Came across in the story when her lover got shot down and killed by the Sycorax, which she was another character once again. How do you create a threat, Big Finish? You kill somebody that somebody loves. Good idea. They're immediately a threat, something that the new series could do. And yeah, I love that because she needed to cope with the idea of fear, and she needed to cope with the idea of basically depression, and coming up with the idea of, because she's never felt it before, because this medication is basically injected into her and then preventing her to feel it. And we have basically a whole group of humans that do not know what to do. They don't know how to face up to emotions because they're constantly injected with certain medication. Seventh Doctor is also great for this story. We have a few great moments with him. We have a lot of Seventh Doctor coming up. I've just reviewed one on the monthly range. This one I feel is a bit different. I don't know where it will be in the Seventh Doctor run. I'm guessing quite later on, maybe. I don't really know, but he was great once again in this story. I think the Seventh Doctor is rather enjoyable, much like the Colin Baker era. He has quite a few comedic values in there once again, and they do sort of have that. He's very jumpy around. He just says at some point in the story, I'm just a man in a crazy jumper, which is what I love. And he says about he has basically this microphone and he's on this balcony talking to the Sycorax, and he does this excellent scene where he goes, I am talking and all this stuff, and it reminds me of when he did the Pandorica speech at that convention once, and somebody put it online, and he's so an excellent speaker, Sylvester McCoy, when he's in front of a ton of aliens. I think that they've definitely used that very well, and once again I think that James Goss has definitely got the Seventh Doctor very well written. Overall for the story, I think it's one of the weaker ones of the box set, but by saying it's one of the weaker ones, that doesn't really mean very much, because either way, it's a bloody good story, because all of the ones on this box set are pretty good, and I think that saying that it's the worst one of the box set still means that it's bloody good, and you're still talking about 9 out of 10-ish, because of this box set is literally about a 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10, which I never normally give ratings of stories, because I find it confusing to sort of put them in comparison to other ones, but seriously, you're edging up to a 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 for this whole box set. Final episode for this story is the Sontaran Ordeal, written by Andrew Smith, which is once again another regular this year actually for Big Finish. I think I've reviewed quite a lot of his stuff, and especially Unit. I do believe that he's one of the main people on that. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't know, I always forget the names of different people. I'm really bad at it. But yeah, I think that once again this is possibly one of the stories in the box set that initially, when I seen the initial plans for this box set and I seen the Sontarans will be in it, I was a bit, because I know that they're already on Big Finish, they're already a classic villain, and I felt there was sort of a bit of a cop-out to an extent, because of course they are classic villains, so they aren't really new series ones, and I felt that they could have used another new series person in there to make it a little bit more new, because all the other ones are solely new series characters. This one highlights the problem that the new series Sontarans have, because this essentially proves that the new series Sontarans are completely different to the classic series, and even Big Finish hit the nail on the head with this one and make these Sontarans completely different to the ones that we've seen before in previous stories. The interesting thing about this box set is, of course, at the moment in current times of Big Finish we have Doom Coalition going on, and previously before that we had Dark Eyes, so this one does not fit in with Doom Coalition. It's a standalone story. However, on closer inspection of the cover and the costume that Paul McGann is wearing in the story, being the Night of the Doctor one, it can be assumed that this story is in fact taking place in the 2017 run coming next year of the 8th Doctor Time War series, which I love that, because this is essentially an episode in the Time War, which is something that I didn't really think we would get so early on, and I was very shocked to see that this episode will be set in the Time War. And once again we have some of the ideas played in from the Night of the Doctor. We have a character in this story that realises what the Doctor is, a Time Lord, and by the end of the story there's this brilliant scene which I'll come into in a little bit that basically sort of contradicts everything the Doctor has done to save this person in the story, and in the end she basically tells him to get lost off her planet, get away. She never wants to see him again because he's a Time Lord and because she knows what he's done as a part of the Time War, and I love that. I think that it's brilliant the way that once again it's been written. It plays on the ideas of the Night of the Doctor, and no doubt it's going to be something that we're going to see a lot in the Time War series. In the story we have two Sontarans mainly. We have Christopher Ryan reprising his role as the Sontaran Commander, yay, who's the one from the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky, and I do believe that he had a role in the Pandora Corruptions as well, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that one though. But yeah, I love him as a Sontaran. I think that he works very well. I do like him probably arguably more than Dan Starkey's Sontarans, because I think all of the ones that Dan Starkey plays, especially in the new series, are a bit comedic. Every single one that he's played, including Strax, is comedic, let's face it. This one, Dan Starkey is playing another Sontaran called Jask, and he is the main Sontaran for Big Finish. He also does the classic ones as well. I do believe he does the ones in Dark Eyes and the ones that were in like the Sontaran Terror or something earlier on in the monthly range a few years ago. And when I was talking to him earlier on this year, he does say that he plays the classic Sontarans a lot differently compared to the new series ones, and because they are generally a lot more of a stricter creature. I would like to say that Jask is sort of a mix between the two. He does have a few comedic factors in there, but also he's very quite clever and quite sort of manipulative, like the old classic Sontarans are. Once again, this story follows quite a simple-ish linear plot. It doesn't really have too much to it, which I think once again it works. It's basically set on this planet called Drakis, and it's a bit of a junk planet really towards the start of the story, and it's sort of affected by the Time War, which at this point one of the characters didn't really know. It's a very small cast story as well. We basically have the Doctor, Jask, the Commander, and this other character which is called Serana, or yes, Serana, I guess Serana Teal, I think that's what she's pronounced as, I can't really remember. She's the companion of the story, and she is played by Josette Simon. Once again, I liked her in it. I think that she was a good character, and towards the end of the story, as I said, that brilliant scene with the Time War sequence that she previously didn't know about until Jask said to her about what the Time Lords had done, and that sort of stuck in her mind. So basically, Jask ruined this relationship between the Doctor and this sort of companion for the story, and I love that. And I think that Jask was once again quite a clever Sontaran, and basically he was sent to this planet after sort of failing one of his fleet missions in order to check if this teleport works onto the planet, as they wanted to be a part of the Time War as well. What wasn't known at this point is the Commander knew full well it probably wouldn't work, and he would in fact die in the process. He lands on the planet fine, and by this point the Commander basically says, right now, go and commit suicide or something and go and die, because he's used up everything, all of his uses now, because he's failed that previous mission, and then this is basically a mission because he's done bad. And basically he ends up landing on the planet and he's absolutely fine. So what's he gonna do now? Basically he's not fine, and later on in the story we find out that the teleport didn't work to an extent and his cells have started to mutate and basically he's dying. So he uses this for when one of the other command ships come down with another Sontaran in, he basically hijacks that ship, takes it back up to the Sontaran fleet with the Doctor and Serana in, and basically hijacks the Sontaran fleet and basically exposes the commander's plan to the rest of the Sontarans, and basically we have a bit of a feud between these Sontarans. There isn't really much else to the story. This is a feud between another Sontaran with a whole fleet of Sontarans, and especially the Sontaran commander. We are briefly introduced to another alien for the story called the Sand Serpent, which is basically this sort of massive serpent snake thing which hides in the sand and basically attacks them for some of the early parts of the story, but they aren't really much of a problem. They have zero dialogue and sort of they're the equivalent sort of swamp style alien. The story, once again, it worked very well. I love the way that we had that feud between the two different groups. Paul McGann had some brilliant scenes in the story as well. I thought that he was great, especially when he trusted Jask to an extent at the start of the story. Basically, he used the Doctor's death in order to try and gain ranks and gain respects and gain his ranks back from the ones that had previously been took off him. And it's a very interesting one. Once again, it's the new series Sontarans, so therefore they are played like new series Sontarans. They do the Sontaha stuff, and I wouldn't have really liked that, I will be honest, as somebody approached me with that. But I think that it's done well. It's not really done to a comedic value, but I do see these Sontarans as completely different to the classic series ones, because they are, let's face it, they've never really got them right, and Big Finish has continued that on, because that's what the new series has done. And all Big Finish have done is grab the new series Sontarans, basically identifying them as a completely different race compared to the classic series ones, and want to do something with them using the same humour, using the same ideas, using the same plots as what the new series does with them, to try and gain something out of them. And I think it does work to an extent. They are a little bit more bearable than the new series, but to be honest, I think the damage has been done with the Sontarans. So yeah, I'm done now. I've done all that I can with this box set. I think that I've tried to keep a lot of it sort of secret in a way, and I've gone through it very briefly. I think there is still a lot more to discover with this box set, and there is just a brilliant novelty about hearing Colin Baker say Shadow Proclamation and Judoon and things like that, and even the Doctor saying Weeping Angels and things. It's definitely very surreal, and I think that it works so well. I never would have imagined the classic Doctors to work so well with new series creations, and I think that generally, especially Fallen Angel and Judoon in Chains, are some of the stories I honestly think are up there with the best stories of this year, which I think that a running theme with Big Finish, or what I've seen from the past with like the different rankings and things in DWM, is the Pacific stories in box sets don't tend to be the ones that rise to the top of the polls, and I think that this year could be the change for that, to be honest, because I honestly think that Fallen Angel especially and Judoon in Chains are two stories that I honestly think could be up there this year with some of the best ones that have been released, no doubt along with the popularity of the 10th Doctor box set, and especially this is my favourite release so far this year from the Doctor Who line, not Jago and Lightfoot, but yeah, from the Doctor Who line specifically with just the Doctor in and things. This is definitely my favourite release so far this year. It is a brilliant starting point for the people who want to get into the classic series, and it's a brilliant bridge between the classic series and new series, of course, having the new series monsters in there, making it a little bit more comfortable for those new series viewers. And for £20 you cannot go wrong, because it is a brilliant box set, and it's just such a high quality amount of stories as well, and for 4 whole stories from 4 different Doctors, it is an utter bargain. Seriously, I adored every second of it. Seriously, I think that it's such a high quality box set. So as I said at the start of the review, I will leave in the description below the link to go and buy this release if you would like it. I highly recommend it. If you have any questions about this box set, please do leave them below as well. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a big like, and please subscribe if you're not already. If any questions, please do leave them below, and I'll be sure to answer them at some point in the near future. Thanks again for watching, and I shall see you all next time. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.